impressed and excited by the small amount of good that they do exhibit. Such an attitude by our leaders ensures that the Torah is perpetuated from one generation to the next. Educators, judge the individual characters of your students and customize a path of development for each one in particular. And even with such a tall order, raise many disciples. That's the Rebbe in Biurim. V'hamidu Talmidim Harbe. Raise many disciples. This negates the view of Ramban Gamliel, who would not accept students who are not completely pious, whose true selves belly their external pious appearance. See Baruchos 28a. And if those that watched my last video, this is the entire reason I went back to this Mishnah, because it was talking about Rabban Gamliel, who didn't accept the students. And then who's the one that fixed this whole situation? I'm going up to the next Mishnah just to elaborate the last Mishnah I did. Chapter 3 of Pirkei Avos, Mishna 17. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he took this approach and he rectified it by teaching the children, by teaching more aspects of the Torah and teaching derech eretz. Once he taught them humility to be quiet in front of a teacher and taught derech eretz and accepted everybody, he had so much students that he couldn't be Nasi anymore. It's like amazing. I mean, he was Nasi for a short time, but he became so great that he had to run the yeshiva. Okay. And this is what that rabbi did. He raised many disciples. This dictum also negates the view of the school of Shammai, who said that one should only accept a student who is wise, humble, and pedigreed. Rather, it endorses the view of the house of Hillel, who said, teach every person, and since there were many wayward individuals who were welcome to study Torah and emerge saintly, pious, and upright. Avos de Rabbi Natan. Now, as we all know, at least in this day and age, we follow the opinion of Rav Hillel, who was more lenient. But think about it. It's more of the approach of Khabar also. Khabar teaches everybody. We don't just stay in our own little bubble. No offense, Satmar, that's what they do. I mean, they're getting better, and I've seen them really going out and helping out a lot of Jews. It's amazing. But going out on Mitzrayim like Chabad does, Litvish is starting to follow, but they don't have the Chassidus and the Rebbe. But Chabad started going out to each and every person to bring them closer to Hashem. Mitzrayim isn't about saying that a Jew is far from Hashem, God forbid. But the Rebbe actually teaches that everybody's neshama is close to Hashem. And when a Jew turns towards Hashem and does Torah mitzvahs, he's returning to himself. And the soul is never far away from it. Is never far away from Hashem. Rather, when a Jew does teshuvah, he opens up his eyes, his soul is opened up, and he comes closer to his true self. The Yetzer Hara, the one that gets you to do averas, that's not your true self. Your true self is the nefesh elokis, the godly soul. So the true leader who wishes to perpetuate the Torah must recognize the challenges his would-be students face and judge them favorably. He will therefore raise many students, finding merit even in those that appear to be meritless. That's the Rebbe in Biurim. The Rebbe says every single Jew has merits. Someone said, if every Jew is like a pomegranate, how can one sin? I mean, how come they sin so much? And the Rebbe said, since every Jew has so many mitzvahs as a pomegranate, how is it possible for them even to sin? Like, the Rebbe looks at the positive. Instead of focusing on all the errors that Jews may or may not do, the Rebbe looks at the collection of everything we've accomplished to such an extent that he said that Mashiach collectively is ready to come right now. He's not focused on the little things we haven't accomplished yet, but he looks at the whole picture and he says it's time for Mashiach to be revealed. And we have to demand from Hashem to bring Mashiach. Anyway, that's getting out of topic. Many students extend to non-Jews as well. Since, as Rambam writes, Hilchos Malachim 8:13-14, we are charged with teaching the 7 basic laws of morality to the entire world. Sefer HaSichot, 5750, Volume 2, page 503. Which comes to my question. Why is only Khabar teaching about the 7 laws of Noah? Because right here in Hilchos Malachim 8:13-14, every single Jew has to teach the non-Jewish person to follow the 7 laws of Noah. By the way, look at my video. I made a video, 2 videos before this. I teach the entire 7 laws of Noah, along with the Chumash portion of, I forgot the Chumash. It was a Chabad.org video about Molech. I think it's brought about in the Chumash or the Haftorah or whatever. And it was teaching about how terrible it was that the idol worshippers would pass their baby over a fire and burn them for an idol. And since I was teaching about idol worship and how bad it is, I taught in that video the whole 7 laws of Noah. So just before that, each word of this phrase, raise many students, conveys a lesson. Raise. The authentic teacher does not teach and move on. He raises the student. Like a flame, caught until it can stand on its own. This can only be achieved when the teacher recognizes the individual's needs of each student. Many. There is no minimum to many. Unlike Rabim, the minimum of which is 2, for no number of students will ever satisfy a true educator. As long as there are individuals in need of Torah study, he will seek them out. In addition, each of his students will fulfill this dictum as well, finding students of their own, disciples. The leader cannot be satisfied with students that merely attend his lectures. These are not students, they are an audience. The leader must seek and develop disciples to whom he is their devoted mentor, the Rebbe in Biurim. Another thing, if you look at the Rebbeim, starting from the Baal Shem Tov, they all had students, and the students became teachers. And let's see, the Baal Shem Tov taught Chassidus to a whole bunch of people. He awakened the whole Jewish world when they were all asleep. A lot of the Jewish people were heartless, didn't have a proper love for another, and the Baal Shem Tov awakened the Jews. But his next student, which was a Misnagid against him, was the Maggid of Mezrich. And then the Maggid of Mezrich's student was the Alter Rebbe, who started Khabar Chassidus. And he brought about the Mitzvah Rebbe, and he was just full of knowledge. He could teach Torah all day long. He just was like an endless fountain of Torah. And then he brought it down to the Tzemach Tzedek, which was amazing because he saved lots of, not only he taught lots of Torah and was a niggin composer and taught Chassidus, but he brought the Chassidus down to practical deed to when the Russians were capturing Jewish children and forcing them to be in the army and convert to Christianity. He would stand up to the Russian government. Most of the Rebbeim stood up to the government, went to jail over it, and did self-sacrifice to influence the Jews to keep learning Torah, even though it was against the law, and to keep teaching and spreading. And they were just resilient, even amongst the laws that were against them. And they kept spreading and spreading. And the Alter Rebbe had a lot of opposition because there was Satan trying to prevent Chassidus from spreading. But with such determination and spreading, each Rebbe taught another student, son-in-law, until it went to the Rebbe. I mean, the Rebbe didn't get another successor. But the thing is, the Rebbe's Torah was brought down to such a level that anybody that picks up his Torah can be a grand master and teach it to anybody. Like, every single one of his students can be a teacher. He's got so many teachers. Not saying the other Rebbes didn't do that, but the Rebbe spread it worldwide. It went viral. All of the Chassidus went viral, and it's still being viral to this day. It's almost like the Rebbe's Torah is completely a new Torah. It's all from the Torah, and it's all intellectual, but it's so mind-blowing. It's almost a second Torah. But nothing is separate from the Torah. It's just brought down to such a level that the simplest person can understand. Like spoon-fed to us. So here's the fourth level. Vasu siyag la Torah. Make a fence for the Torah. An example, additional enactments beyond Torah law that serve as a buffer zone to keep a person from transgressing the Torah. As the Torah says, safeguard my charge. This is Leviticus 18:30. Or in the Chumash we know it as Vayikra 18:30. Moed Katan 5a Rambam. Innovation in Torah. In every relationship there are clearly stated desires, and those that are only alluded to. And it is by recognizing and fulfilling those unspoken desires that each partner expresses his or her true love. So it is with the relationship between God and man in the Torah. God tells us what he wants in very explicit terms. When there are inner desires that he leaves for us to discover through our understanding of Torah and our love for him. These are the mitzvot and the traditions that the Jewish people have added to the Torah over time, according to the guidelines that were given at Sinai. In fact, God treasures our fulfillment of those mitzvot that we have discovered more than those that he revealed in the Torah. This is the Rebbe in Biurim, Maharal, and Ner Mitzvah. So God desires for us to discover through our own understanding of Torah and our own love for him. He wants to have our own connection to him. These are the mitzvahs and traditions that the Jewish people have added to the Torah over time, according to the guidelines that were given at Sinai. And in fact, God treasures our fulfillment of those mitzvahs that we have discovered more than those he revealed in the Torah. Like when we learn Torah and we come up with a chiddush, and an understanding in our own perspective, Hashem cherishes it more than the Torah that was revealed in Mount Sinai. In fact, I remember learning that Moses was jealous of the future generations of all the chidushim that they would come up with. Everything was based on what Moshe gave, but he had a vision of all the Torah that was going to be given after him, and he was in awe and jealous of the Torah that we would come up with. Because each person has a chiddush, and he'll teach it to someone else, and that other person will get that chiddush and come up with his own chiddush. So if you think about it, from Moshe till now, the Torah has expanded. I mean, the actual Torah is the same Torah, but the lessons derived from one person to the next, it's phenomenal. So, beginning and end. The first and last phrases of the Mishnah complement each other. The Mishnah begins with Moshe's reception of Torah from Sinai. How does one perpetuate this Torah? By making a fence around it. In each generation, the Torah student cannot be satisfied with what he has received from the past, going all the way back to Moshe. He must strive to apply the Torah in accordance with the needs of the generation. In creating these fences, however, the student must remain faithful to the rules and codes that Moshe received at Sinai and passed on to Joshua, etc., the Rebbe, and Biurim. So this last couple things is a prudent speaker. Make a fence can also mean that, especially when teaching Torah, make a fence around your words and be sensitive to your audience. Carefully choose the appropriate content, length, time, and place for your teaching. Avoid defeating your own purpose and irritating your listeners. Don't be boring. Try not to be boring. Try to be entertaining. Don't be too long. Think about the audience that you're trying to teach. An Arabian fable. A sage was asked why he lectures for so long. And he says, so that the fools will understand. He replied, he was then told, by the time the fools understand, the wise ones are repulsed. Mary, based on Avos, de Rabbi Natan. And I'm going to end right now on that note. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I wish you a good Shabbos, and Baruch Hashem, I'm tired now, so I'm going to go to sleep. Everybody have a good Shabbos. I just did this Mishnah because the other one related to this one, and I had to understand what it was talking about. Zagizun Mashiach now.